Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2012 Nissan Armada, we're going to be showing you how to install the Redarc Tow Pro Liberty trailer brake controller. And we're going to be installing that in conjunction with the Redarc adapter plug. But before we get to that, why don't we just check this out and see if it's a good fit for you. The Nissan Armada, it's a big SUV, and they're really capable. And a lot of people use them to tow some big trailers around. If your trailer has brakes, you're going to need a way to apply them. That way, you can slow everything down safely. And that's where a trailer brake controller like this Redarc here is going to come into play. What this is going to do, whenever you hit the brakes in your Nissan, it's going to apply the brakes on the trailer, bringing you to a complete stop. One of the things that really sets the Redarc apart from some of the other brake controllers is the size. It looks a lot different. The only thing you're going to be able to see is the adjustment knob here. And the rest of the main body of the brake controller, I guess you'd call it, sits up behind the dash. So you're not going to have this big box, that's always in the way and an eyesore bolted up to your dash. And with this one, I think it turned out really good. We actually had some factory switches and whatnot here already. We had a blank one, so we were able to mount this up in there. And so it looks almost factory and a really clean appearance and still really easy to get to. One of the things with a brake controller like this as well is the fact that it's what's called proportional. So what that means, more or less, however hard you apply the brakes in your Nissan, the trailer brakes are going to match that. So it just makes it a lot smoother and a lot better braking experience. So to kind of give you an example of that, let's say if you're going down the road and approaching a stop sign and you're halfway on the brake, trailer brakes are going to do the same thing. On the other hand, let's say if you're going down the highway, maybe an accident up ahead or something along those lines, and you got to really stand on the brake to slow things down, trailer is going to do the same thing. So you're not going to feel the trailer dragging or wanting to push you around. You're actually going to be stopping as one whole unit. This particular brake controller is going to be good for trailers that have either one or two axles, which is perfect for the Nissan. I don't really see these pulling triple axles. And there are some adjustments, so you can change your brake force. So you have the knob here, that's 10, that's 0. So at 0 you'd have no braking force. And so you can kind of fine tune that. So let's say, a good place to start is probably 5 or below. Let's say maybe you got a light trailer and nothing in it, you're going to pick something up. You might only need a 1 or a 2, something like that. But then you load it up and realize it's not braking quite as hard as you'd like it to. You can always dial that up a couple clicks. So you can really fine tune it for your particular load and what you're going to be doing and your particular driving style. It's also going to have a manual override button, and all you do is you just push down on this. And so I'm actually hooked up to a test box which simulates a trailer. That's why we're getting these lights going and everything. But you can see when you push down on this, that light's going to glow red, and that means you're going to be just applying the trailer brake. So let's say if the trailer starts to get squirrely, kind of gets away from you a little bit, you can hit that, slow the trailer down, straighten it back out, and continue on. Other than that, though, at the end of the day, a really nice fit for the Armada, actually. Having that knockout panel there and where this is mounted up, everything went together really smooth and came out real good. As far as the installation goes, ours was not bad at all, and I think that'll be the case for most people. As long as your truck has a factory tow package, essentially all you got to do is find the connector, plug it in, mount up the box, and then mount up your knob. So it's more tedious than anything, but as long as you take your time, you should be in good shape. I do want to mention, for those of you, if your truck does not have that factory tow package, so if you don't have the factory 7-way connector back there, you are going to have to get a couple of other things, which this is probably going to be rare for most of these vehicles, but you'll need a 4-way flat, trailer connector, the etrailer.com universal brake controller install kit, and the Redarc universal adapter plug to make everything work. But like I said, chances are really good. This info will get you going in the right direction. So if you'd like to see how we did it, feel free to stick around. We'll go ahead and install it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be working here on the driver's side floorboard. And what we need to do is locate the Nissan's factory brake controller plug, which should look something like this. That way we can plug our adapter into it. So usually it's tucked up under the dash somewhere, In our case, I believe it's kind of behind this panel, and so it'd probably be easier just to remove the panel. And it's going to be held in place with 2 screws here along the bottom edge. So here's what the screw looks like. You're going to have one on each side of the panel here on the bottom. We'll grab our Phillips head screwdriver and get those pulled out. So what we should be able to do now is just kind of carefully start to pull up on our panel. And a lot of times these are just snapped into place. So we're just going to carefully kind of start to work it off. That way we can try to locate our connector plug. The connector plug is this one right here, this white one. I'm not sure what all these other wires are. I think this might be something added on, so you might not have this big bundle here. But either way, this is a connector plug that you're looking for. And all you're going to do is take the adapter plug and plug it right in. So I went ahead and just unplugged our plastic panel that we removed. That way we can get it out of the way, see what we're doing a little bit more. Just disconnect the plugs if you want to do that as well. But now I'm going to remove this metal portion here just to give us more room to work and be able to see what we're doing. So there's 4 10mm head bolts. We should be able to kind of lift up on this and get it out of the way for now. And what we're going to do is take this wire here and plug it into our brake controller. And I already kind of scoped out a spot where I want to mount this up. And what I did, because there's not a whole lot of room, what I did is just took a piece of metal and kind of made an L out of it and used some self-tapping screws to secure our unit to it. And I'm going to try to mount it up potentially on that metal panel that we just took off. Kind of just depends here. So you can do something similar. You can mount this any way you want. Just don't mount it to like a bundle of wires where this can shift around, because then it can throw everything off, throw off the calibration and whatnot. So I'll plug this in. So one end will obviously get connected, and you can't plug them in wrong. You know, it only lets you do it one way. And then while I'm here, I'm also going to plug in our other end. So this is just a cable that'll plug into this, and then one end will go to our knob eventually. So I'll plug that in, and then we can figure out a way we can fashion this up to get it secured. So what I did along this channel here, I just drilled a hole and then used a nut and a bolt to actually secure our bracket to this panel. And I tried to get a flat bolt because our plastic piece is going to lay somewhere in this area probably. So I didn't want something sticking way down and blocking it. So pretty straightforward there. Just as a reference, if you look, there's a spot weld, that little dot there, and I essentially just went right in front of that, you know, on this ledge, because that seems to be the most open area where this can sit. So we'll make sure our wires aren't, you know, getting jammed up in there or anything, and then we'll simply just reinstall this. So here's our dash panel, and we're working on this. That way we can figure out a spot where we can mount up our adjustment knob, which is this piece here. And in our case, we have some factory knockout panels, right? And one of them is blank. And so I think we should be able to make this work. If we modify this, we could probably get this to fit inside of there and have a really clean look to it. So we need to actually get this piece out. Be careful when you're doing this because it is this plastic, but you can take a flathead screwdriver, kind of lift up on that tab and push this out. Same thing on the back side there. So once we have this piece out, like I said, I think I'll be able to modify it to get this to come through there. So I'm going to see what we're working with, maybe grab some drill bits, get this drilled out, and kind of go from there. So here's our knockout panel. I put some tape on it so we could draw on it, and I just found the center this way, and then obviously this way. Made a cross, And then I'm going to use this as a template. So this comes with the brake controller. So I just set that on there, drew a circle, and now we're going to enlarge the main hole there. So I do suggest using a pilot bit first. That way we can get exactly where we need to go. And then we can switch out to the appropriate size bit. So what we're going to do now, you can take this trim ring and this retainer nut there, kind of push it in through the hole, and I'm going to line this up with the center. So just like that. I'm going to take this itty bitty drill bit and make a pilot hole. Then we can take this out, and I'll probably have to make that hole a little bit bigger. What you want though is for this piece to be able to kind of snap in here a flat. We may or may not use this, it kind of just depends on when everything gets together, but either way we need this hole, that way the light and our actual control knob can pass through there. So here's how our knockout panel turned out. I think it's going to be too thick to be able to use this ring as well, so not really a big deal. We don't have to use it. But we're going to take our knob, fashion that in there, and then you can take this piece and start to thread it on. I got a 12mm socket. You don't have to crank these down by any means, just get it snug by hand, just like that. So what we can do now is make sure our knob can go on and can actually operate. So you want to take this dial and turn it all the way to the left, or counterclockwise. Then take your knob and you want the 0 to be in line with our light there. So get that as close as we can. And that's just going to push into place. So once it's lined up, you want to make sure this can spin freely and you're able to actually push it down and feel it click, because that's going to be our manual override. So with that set up now, we can take our knockout panel and reinstall it. So now that cable that was left unplugged from our brake controller, that will simply just plug right into the back of the control knob, like that. And now what I'm going to do is get the rest of our connectors plugged in and just reinstall our panel. And now really all that's left to do is calibrate the brake controller. So you can do this without a trailer. You don't have to have the trailer hooked up. You're just going to drive around like you normally would, and generally speaking, after about 20 times hitting the brake and coming to a stop, that'll calibrate. However, with that said, if you're not hooked up to a trailer, you're not going to have any indication that this is calibrated. When you are hooked up to a trailer, this will flash blue and green, and you'll hit the brakes and the trailer brakes will apply. You'll see this be blue and green, and then once it's calibrated, it'll just turn to a steady blue light. So you have a couple options if you're not ready to tow immediately, say maybe another week. Just drive the car around like you normally would. If you need to tow immediately, hook the trailer up, get it calibrated, and you'll be all set. So here's what that light's gonna look like once it's calibrated. And honestly, it only took about a minute or two, so it shouldn't take too long to get this thing up and going. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Redarc Tow Pro Liberty trailer brake controller on our 2012 Nissan Armada.